Time for questions to the Executive Office. We'll start with listed questions. Question 3 has been withdrawn, and I call David Honeyford. First Minister.
We are delighted that Dr. Katie Radford formally started her role as Director of the Office of Identity and Cultural Expression on the 13th of November. Other members of the Office Board are due to take up post on the 3rd of December. Over the coming months, it will seek to develop a work programme in line with the aims and functions set out in the Identity and Language Act 2022. Their aim will be the promotion of cultural pluralism, respect for diversity, social cohesion and reconciliation, and also to support and promote the celebration of our cultural and linguistic heritage. We are confident that we have the right people in place to deliver these objectives and are committed to supporting the Office in its efforts. We will be able to provide further details to members on the work of the Office as it progresses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the First Minister just to outline how her office will ensure that the work on identity and culture isn't just symbolic, but genuinely supports some of our young people, our sports clubs, our community groups across all traditions to build relationships and share understanding, and how that progress will be measured and reported back to this Assembly?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it has to be much more than symbolism. I think it's really a crucial juncture in which we can have a new departure, particularly in relation to social cohesion, the problems that we have and we've witnessed across society over, particularly in the last year. So I think there's a real opportunity here not to be missed, and I think we need to be able to, I suppose, measure that progress as we go, and this is something that we're committed to working with Katie and the board team. Obviously there are very clear aims of the Office set out within the legislation itself, but for me, I think that there's a complementarianism of both this office and the other two offices and how they can work in a complementary fashion, but also distinctly as well. So I just think that there's a real opportunity for this office to be shaped and create a huge opportunity to promote respect, inclusion, social cohesion and reconciliation between all of our different national and cultural identities.
Philip Brett.
Mr. Speaker, First Minister, one of the greatest examples of initiatives to promote cultural understanding is the wide range of portraits of Lord Mayors at Belfast City Hall. A member of your party and employee was forced to resign after attacking that portrait. Given your requirements to uphold the rule of law under the Ministerial Code, will you take this opportunity to name that former employee and which member of your party and member of this House that individual is related to?
Minister.
If only your question was genuinely about respect, but of course it's not. The PPS have made their views known and I respect their position.
And I thank the First Minister for her answers. And as you've outlined, there is amazing work going on within our communities to promote inclusion and cultural understanding. And does the First Minister agree with me that there is now an opportunity for the Office of Cultural Expression and Identity, as well as the Office of Irish Language Commissioner and the Ulster Scots Commissioner, to build on this work and to help further promote a society that is built on respect and mutual understanding of identity and of culture?
Yes, as I referenced in the previous answer, I think to the original question, I think that there's so much incredible work that actually happens out there. We all see it in our backyards, we all see it in our constituencies, and I think you can see such a huge degree of work to promote inclusion and social cohesion that's happening very much on a grassroots level. I think we need to draw all that out. We need to focus on that positivity. We need to build upon the positivity, whether that be in community centres or in sports clubs and sports spaces, in places where people come together to share experiences, and we have a richness of diversity, and I think that's something that we need to get to the position where we talk about how we celebrate our diversity, how we respect the differences that are there. But I think that the Office of Cultural Identity and Expression was going to create that opportunity to build upon what's there, to focus on new work programmes, but also genuinely really help to build a new society that we're all desperately wanting to achieve together. So I think with the three commissioners now in place, or the director and the two commissioners in place, the work that they can do together, I think, will bear fruit over the course of the years to come.
John Corley. A chiad eire, an jigla inch doing ye ken fa nach ro commas na changa gili, a mas na criteer de capachain don ward.
Sorry, my translation thing wasn't working, but yes, the other board members are going to be in place. We wanted to give Katie a chance to bed in herself, and then we put the other board members in place, and they are going to take up their role in the next number of weeks. I'm just looking for their names. So we've got Brian Dougherty, we've got Alan Finlay, we've got Stephen Moore, Dr Kelly Persick and Dr Jacqueline Withrow have all been appointed, and they will assume the role on the 3rd of December, so just round the corner, and that will very much then add to the director who is now in post. I think it was important that she gets a chance to put her feet under the table and then welcome in the new board members, and then together they will design the programme of work.
Timothy Galston.
Does the First Minister believe a fanatic who believes the Irish language legislation doesn't go far enough, and who is, or at least was, a card-carrying member of Sinn Féin is the right person to hold the post of Irish Language Commissioner? How can someone with this type of record enjoy unionist support?
I'm sure the Commissioner will have something to say about your own commentary, but I very much welcome the Commissioner to his post. I wish him well in his post. Add more to Paul Days as he takes up his role, and I think that we all should get behind him and stop skirting around the issues and stop being so divisive. Try to think about it from an inclusive point of view. This is the promotion of the Irish language. It is a positive thing. You shouldn't be frightened.
David Brooks.
Question 2.
Minister.
With your permission, Concordia, I'll answer questions 2 and 13 together. The independent review carries a range of recommendations and suggestions on the function of the Windsor framework. Many of the recommendations concern areas of responsibility for the British Government, and our officials are engaging with the Cabinet Office and the Northern Ireland Office on those areas which touch on executive responsibilities. We've also held a very useful discussion with the Minister for the Cabinet Office, Nick Thomas Simmons, on the 13th of November, where we outlined the importance of working together to ensure a pragmatic approach to addressing the issues raised in the report. One of the recommendations is that further staff be seconded or added to the office of the Executive Office in Brussels, and we welcome the recognition of the important role of the office that it has to play in providing information and upstream engagement on EU legislation. We've also advocated for support for our local businesses, and therefore welcome the commitment made by the British Government today. Officials are working to understand any of the details of that funding package and then how it will be implemented also.
Thank you, First
Mr.
Minister. I thank the First Minister for her answer, and the office has an important role, I think, in influencing in Europe, but also as a canary in the mine that can warn us if any serious difficulties that may come from European legislation. One of the current difficulties around that is that of veterinary medicines, and I'd be interested to know if she's had any conversations or update for us in terms of the real threat that poses to our veterinary sector and animal health in Northern Ireland, and what can be done with the looming end of the grace period.
Yes, I can assure you this is something that we raise at all of our engagements. Obviously, we welcome the fact that there will be an SBS agreement, because I think that will iron out a lot of the issues that have developed to this point. However, we need to have a particular approach to veterinary medicines, and that's raised on every engagement, and we're hopeful to continue to keep getting progress.
Reckon.
My apologies, Speaker. I didn't think I was down for a question. Oh, sorry, in that case. I don't have a question for you, First Minister. Minister, you'll be aware from the Murphy report that it states that one of the most obvious benefits attributed to the Windsor framework is dual market access, but also the need to highlight and publicise that fact. Would you agree with me that we need to do more to maximise dual market access?
Minister.
Yes, and I know the members raised this question with me on a number of occasions, so I absolutely do concur with that. I think when you look at the Murphy report, which obviously is his own report, and we have to await the British Government's response to it by January, so just next month, or almost 2 months away. But it did focus on a number of areas, not least the fact that dual market access is something that we need to lean into even more heavier. And I absolutely agree with you that we need to continue to do so. This is a real opportunity for us to grow our economy. And when you look at the growth of our export market over the course of the last years, actually since we've had the Windsor framework introduced, our local exports have increased by 2%. That's in direct comparison to a 9% drop in Britain. So that tells you how unique our status is and how we have to really maximise it out to grow our economy, create jobs and really reach for that market. And I commend the work of Keith Archibald as the Economy Minister, who continues to look towards those opportunities and to promote our dual market access selling point, that uniqueness that we have, and to basically send a message that we are open for business and we want to grow our economy and we want to attract the investment that we can achieve with this unique selling point.
Stuart Dixon.
Thank you very much, First Minister, for your answers so far. First Minister, will you join me in being relentlessly positive with regards to the dual access opportunities that Northern Ireland has, and particularly with the expansion of the Brussels office? Will you ensure that our small and medium-sized enterprises are given the real opportunity to market Northern Ireland across the EU?
Yes, I will join with you in terms of relentless positivity. We have a good news story to tell here, and I think that it's something that we very much promote, that message that we're open for business, that we have this dual market access really is an envy of many other economies. So it's something that we really very much must maximise out. That's why our Brussels office is very important in terms of what happens there, the resource implications for all of that. But there are also post-Brexit realities that we're facing and challenges that need to be mitigated. I welcome the fact that as a direct result, I think, of all of the advocating that we've been doing, all of us collectively on behalf of local businesses, that we need some support for businesses to overcome some of those challenges and opportunities. That's now been muted as part of the budget for this week, so that's something that obviously we need to see more of the detail of, but anything that helps businesses to remove barriers to get opportunity, then that's something that we should always be positive about.
David Loughlin.
First Minister, do you accept that strengthening our presence in Brussels is a two-way process, and that the effectiveness of our work there would be significantly enhanced if we had an EU Commission office based in Belfast?
That is my view. I'm not sure it's a shared view across the office, but it's certainly my view that we should have a Commission office based in Belfast. I think that it is a two-way street, you're absolutely right. So I welcome the progress we've made in our own office in Brussels. Look forward to visiting it at some stage in the near future, but I do think that as we reach into these opportunities, then these are things that would make good common sense in a very practical way to help businesses understand and navigate sometimes this complex trading world that we live in now.
Question 3 is withdrawn. Call Paula Bradshaw.
Question 4, please.
Yeah, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, Junior Minister Riley will take this question.
Thank you. Clerical child abuse has had a devastating impact, and I just at the outset want to express our deepest sympathy and solidarity to all victims and survivors of this terrible abuse. Throughout this process, the previous Junior Minister Cameron and I have engaged with victims and survivors to hear their stories and their views on what is needed, and we will continue to do that, Junior Minister Bunting and I, as we go forward. We are very grateful to all of those who have participated in the process and shared their experiences. Work is now completed on 3 separate pieces of research: 1 examining records held by faith organisations and statutory agencies, 1 recording experiences and expectations of victims and survivors, and 1 examining the safeguarding policies and practices of faith groups. We have received the research reports and are giving them careful consideration. On the 10th of November, the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister met with Lisa Caldwell, the independent chair of the Interdepartmental Working Group, to discuss the reports and the IDWG recommendations. Officials continue to engage with the victim survivors, whose views we will take into account as we move forward. Our deliberations on the reports are continuing, and no decisions on next steps have been made. The research has highlighted the importance of current-day safeguarding practice, and we note that the PSNI has announced that it has launched a criminal investigation and established a dedicated team to follow safeguarding concerns at the Presbyterian Church in Ireland. And as this is a live investigation, we would not want to say anything which might prejudice that. However, we do reiterate the appeal from the PSNI for any victims and survivors to come forward, and trust that everyone will cooperate fully with this investigation.
Ms Bradshaw.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Junior Minister, for that update. Obviously, things are moving on with this, and there is a growing body of campaigners who are looking for a public inquiry. The victims and survivors of institutional abuse in the mother and baby homes, they campaigned for over 10 years for a public inquiry, and I greatly fear that this group of survivors will also have to campaign for 10 years. When will you be making a decision on the recommendations put forward from the research? Thank you.
And I thank you for that question. And I just want to say again that my thoughts are with every single person who has lived through clerical child abuse. What they faced was horrific, and that impact The impact of that just doesn't disappear. It is with them every single day, and they should never have been put in that position or faced the horrific nature of abuse. As I've said, I've had the chance to sit down with some of the victims and survivors myself, and I'll be really honest, the conversations were very emotional, difficult at times, but I'm grateful for their trust and the time that they took to speak with me. And I think when you hear directly from the victims and survivors, it does reiterate the importance of how we handle this work going forward. So, as I have said in the opening answer, that we are considering how we go forward in the next steps. We're still working our way through the reports and officials, and we will continue to engage with victims and survivors. And any update, of course, we will bring back to members.
Ken Corley, and thank the Junior Minister for answers so far. Junior Minister, you referenced that on the 12th of November the Presbyterian Church in Ireland issued a press release acknowledging previous safeguarding failures, and I want to say that our thoughts are with anybody who was impacted by that. I absolutely concur with everything you've said in terms of victims and survivors. Minister, do you agree that these latest revelations reinforce the point that lessons must be learned and highlight the need for a renewed focus on safeguarding so that all bodies can be fully aware of their obligations and also that they honour those obligations?
And I just want to associate myself again with your comments on that. I think the recent revelations, alongside those of a historic nature, which the research of clerical abuse speaks to, is a stark reminder of the need of consistent and sustained focus on safeguarding. No longer can there be situations where warning signs are missed, where organisations fail to act, or where investigations are not prioritised when concerns are raised. Safeguarding requires constant improvement and vigilance. That means adherence to robust procedures, clear mandatory reporting, proper records, accountability, and a culture where the protection of children and vulnerable people comes first. It is only by making sure that these systems are strong, independently scrutinised and continually reviewed that we can demonstrate a commitment to learning from the past, preventing failures in the future.
Keith Buchanan. Question 5, please. Minister.
Immigration is an accepted matter, and the Executive has no decision-making powers in respect to the movement of people and migration flows. We believe the asylum system should be fair, balanced and offer protection to those in genuine need, and we recognise the positive contribution of migration to our society, including in the delivery of our essential services, particularly our health and social care sector, and to our economy. We attended the Interministerial Group for Safety, Security and Migration on the 12th of November, at which the intention for reforms were highlighted. However, now that we have received the published asylum policy statement, we are reviewing the proposals and will continue to engage with the Home Office at ministerial and official level on implementation and also on local impacts.
Mr Buchanan. Thank you. First Minister, between the period 2011 to 2015 there were 150,000 claimed asylum seekers. Between the period 2021 to 25 there were 400,000, a massive increase. As First Minister for this region of the United Kingdom, in your opinion, is there a problem?
So I think the question that you ask is in relation to what's being proposed in Britain, because I've set out very clearly our role in terms of immigration. We don't control migration flows. But what I can say in relation to your initial answer is that what was published by the Labour government last week provides us only with a high-level overview. We still don't understand what that means in terms of practical outworkings, in terms of asylum reforms that the Home Office plan to implement. And the detail of all those reforms are still going to have to be worked through. I think that, unfortunately, the reality is that, particularly from some in your own party, that a lot of those figures are really overinflated. We depend very much on migration right across our health and social care system. Quite a high number of people migrate here to work and to provide our public services. So I think we need to put things in perspective. Our level of asylum, people who are seeking support at times of having to flee war and persecution or genocide, are something that I think that we should all be open to. Like, I'm absolutely open to a managed immigration system that actually provides support for those that actually need it, that's fair, that's accountable, that's human rights compliant and that's compassionate. And I think that's the least all of us can do. But I think we need to keep in perspective the actual numbers that we have here in terms of asylum and also those who come here for economic migration.
Thank the First Minister. First Minister, you will know that some of the recent data that we do actually know relating to here is that PSNI have indicated that race crimes are at very worrying levels. Does the First Minister agree with me that there can be no tolerance for racism and that together we must all work to end this scourge?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I do believe that we must work together. This is about our home, this is about our society, this is about good relations, this is about social cohesion, this is about integration. So I think that all of us have a role to play in terms of tackling racism where we see it, calling it out where we see it, and don't be allowing or don't have any acceptable level of tolerance for racism whenever we see it. I think the PSNI data that you referred to shows that racist hate crimes have risen, and that's something that should concern every single person elected to this chamber. We can never forget the real impact, human impact at the core of all of this. So, as I say, no tolerance for hatred, no tolerance for racism, and no one should be targeted because of their race or their religious, or their religion or nationality or disability or their sexual orientation, for that matter. I think that it's so important that we create a society that is welcoming, that is inclusive, that celebrates diversity, that champions diversity, and I think we need to ensure that our minority ethnic community here, who make a crucial role, as I said in a previous answer, make a crucial role to our public services, that they know that they are valued and feel part of our society and feel safe. And I think we all have, as I said, play our part in that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank the First Minister for her answers. Asylum policy is reserved, but integration is devolved, and I'd like the First Minister's assessment of what the negative rhetoric around migrants, what impact that is having on this Assembly's ability to bring forward integration, and the impact it doesn't just have on human beings, but on the economy as well. People in our society are feeling very fearful right now, and politicians and their rhetoric isn't helping.
Yeah, I agree with you. Some of the rhetoric can be so toxic, and then it also puts those people from a black and ethnic minority community in particular, puts them in a real spot where they actually don't feel safe to walk about the street. I know people that work in our hospitals that are afraid to go to their workplace. Now, how by anybody's standards, they think that that's an acceptable position is beyond me. So we have a role to play in terms of how we shape this place, the language that we use, how we speak about these things. We've also got roles to play in terms of policies that we develop, not least our own refugee integration strategy, our racial equality strategy, updating our race relations laws, the funding that we have for supporting minority ethnic development, the work that we do with councils, good relations funding. There's so many layers of different work, but I think it needs to be joined up in a way that actually it makes a meaningful difference. So I concur with you in terms of how dangerous language is and how important it is for us as political leaders to set the tone.
Don Burrows. Speaker, would the First Minister agree with me that whilst we should celebrate lawful migration, that any foreign national that commits sexual violence upon our women here in Northern Ireland should be swiftly deported from the country?
Yes, I think that anybody who commits a crime should be dealt with accordingly. I mean, that's common sense. That should be the same in the norm in any society. But I do think, back to the previous commentary around language being important and how we describe things being important, I think it's very easy to characterise all crimes against women, all sexual crimes against women, to be from a particular community. That's not the case. That's not the case. It doesn't stack up in terms of a policing perspective and their own stats. It doesn't stack up in the National Office of Statistics. So do your homework very carefully.
Nick Matheson.
Question number 6.
Minister.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, Junior Minister Riley will answer this question.
Thank you. We, along with our executive colleagues, have made it very clear that all acts of violence and intimidation are abhorrent and have no place in our society. We believe that everyone, regardless of race, religion or background, is entitled to feel safe and be safe, free from threat or intimidation. The Executive Office provides funding of over £7 million to local organisations and councils to support cohesion and integration and address good relations issues. An additional allocation of £220,000 was also distributed to councils to address issues around racial and social cohesion. In parallel, work has progressed on the TEO Crisis Fund, which could be used to support those at risk of destitution or homelessness. Enhancing community cohesion is very much a cross-cutting issue that requires a collective and a joined-up approach. In recognition of that, the Executive Office is leading a dedicated community cohesion group. It is working collaboratively across departments, sectors and communities to bring people together to create safer, more supportive environments. The Education Authority has also provided a range of support for children impacted, including supporting children in Ballymena to return to school. They are also working with Belfast City Council to bring together 14 schools affected by the unrest across Belfast for cluster working and racial literacy training for teachers. A follow-up Good Relations programme is also planned with the EA and Mid and East Antrim Council in the spring and summer in terms of helping to address misinformation and race-related incidents.
Mr. Matheson.
and I thank the Junior Minister for those answers. And you've referenced it in your answer already, that children displaced from their homes in this way see a significant disruption to their education. Can you provide more detail in terms of the Executive Office engagement with the Education Minister in terms of how the impact of that can be better mitigated?
Sure.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned in terms of it is a cross-cutting issue, and we need to continue working with all ministers across the executive and all departments. Just to say, I think the families came here hoping that this place would finally be somewhere where they could build a stable and peaceful life. And we can never lose fact that say that these are human beings looking for nothing more than any of us would want for our families. Our department and our officials have been working hard to support communities so that people feel welcome and safe. And that's through providing funding to local councils, community organisations specifically to strengthen cohesion, integration and good relations, as I have mentioned. But funding alone isn't enough. It is important that we constantly look for new avenues and new partnerships so we can keep working together across government, across councils, voluntary groups and communities to make sure that those who want to call this place home feel safe, supported and valued. And I think we all share a responsibility to make that possible.
Matthew Mason.
And I thank the Junior Minister for her answers so far. Can the Junior Minister outline what work is actually being done by the Executive Office to help build a society that is free from the scourge of sectarianism, racism and intolerance?
Yes, and as I've mentioned, the Executive Office and the wider Executive have made it very, very clear that everyone is entitled to feel safe and to be safe in our society. Racism and sectarianism have absolutely no place in our communities. There are no excuses for it, and we as political leaders have a responsibility to show leadership, call out racism and stand with victims of intimidation, discrimination and violence, and we will continue to do that. The Executive Office has a number of programmes to help support this work, and that includes over 500,000 in additional funding which has been provided since the summer to fund projects promoting inclusion and integration. The Executive Office Minority Ethnic Development Fund, which is approximately 1.1 million per annum. The TEO's Planned Interventions Programme, a range of other programmes, including TBUC, also provide funding to promote inclusion and integration. And that also includes the Central Good Relations Fund and the Communities in Transition Programme, which is delivering 35 projects focused on resilience and tackling paramilitarism with a budget of 2.9 million.
O'Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Junior Minister, I obviously represent, as others in the Chamber, the most diverse constituency probably in the North. I have to say, and I'm not spiffing when I say this, the response from most BAME individuals and communities is they are underwhelmed by the executive response to the race riots we've seen. One element of that is the criminal justice response. Can I ask, is the Executive Office engaged with the Justice Minister in terms of the sentencing bill and when we're finally going to get hate crime provisions in law?
Yeah, and thank you. And as I have said, in terms of the Executive Office, we constantly engage across the Executive and other departments and with other ministers. But in terms of that specific remit, that is the remit of the Justice Minister.
Shane.
Ever shocked? Question 7 at all.
The Director of the Office of Identity and Cultural Expression, the Irish Language Commissioner and the Commissioner for Ulster Scots and the Ulster British Tradition took up their posts on the 13th of November. These appointments are a significant step forward as we continue to build a shared, inclusive and respectful society by recognising and celebrating our rich cultural diversity of identities, languages and traditions. We wish them all every success in their new roles and look forward to working with them.
Mr. Sheehan.
The Minister will be aware that there's a thriving Irish language community in my own constituency in West Belfast. We have the Gaeltacht quarter and many children educated in Irish medium schools. And could I ask the First Minister, does she believe that the appointment of the Irish Language Commissioner will be extremely important in terms of improving the visibility of An Gaeilge used by public authorities?
Yes, I very much welcome, as I said, the fact that the Irish Language Commissioner is in post, also that the other two Commissioner and Director are also in post. I think it's an extremely important milestone for us. I think it's a step forward in terms of building a society that is respectful and inclusive, and I think that it's a real matter for inclusion, equality and representation that the Irish language and culture is now properly reflected in society, and that will be part of the role of the Commissioner in terms of ensuring and enhancing that we protect the use of An Gaeilge across public authorities here and to provide and develop best practice standards for that purpose. I concur with you in terms of the number of children that are being educated through the medium of Irish. Just shows you the growth of the language, the growth of the number of parents that want to educate their children through Irish language education. And also, I think in recent years, the strength of the arts, of music, of culture, I think is something to be very much celebrated. It's positive, it's vibrant, it's a living language, and I think that our public services should reflect, and those all people in society should see themselves reflected and their culture and identity reflected in public services.
Brian Kingston.
And many within the unionist community have felt as though their British culture and identity have been undermined and not treated fairly. Can the First Minister confirm today that the Office of Identity and Cultural Expression will actively work to promote cultural understanding of the British identity, will not be biased towards one identity more than the other, and will be fairly funded across identities?
Yes, there's a fair funding model in place, and I wish all of the Commissioners and the Director the very, very best. Their role is about inclusion, it is about mutual respect, it is about creating a better society, and it is about respect for cultural difference, and I think that's crucially important. So the remit of these three new offices can be really pivotal in terms of shaping the narrative in our society and actually creating that space for everybody to be comfortable in their Irishness, in their Britishness, in their Ulster Britishness, whatever they feel and whatever they identify with. We need to create space for each other. I think these Commissioners and Director has a place to play in helping to create that dynamic in society.
Moving to topical questions, Matthew O'Toole.
Thank you. First Minister, last week the COVID inquiry report was clear and it was damning that the executive response to the pandemic was marred because ministers, specifically ministers from your party and the DUP, put party politics ahead of the public good during the biggest public health emergency in our lifetimes. Executive powers were abused and ministers, including yourself, undermined the public health messaging, not just through First Minister the Bobby Storey funeral, but also incidents like the failure or the refusal to agree a statement with other devolved jurisdictions ahead of Christmas. First Minister, do you accept the inquiry's findings that you, your party, along with the DUP, failed in leadership?
Well, firstly, as I said last week, I very much recognise that the report will become another difficult moment in the recovery journey for all those families that were impacted by the pandemic itself. So I think we need to be very mindful of them. And certainly, in my experience of engaging with all those families, what they want us to do is to learn lessons. And that's very much what I am committed to doing. So I thank the Chair for the work of the inquiry. I do think it does mark a major milestone in terms of our learning from our preparedness for a future pandemic, which we inevitably will face. We have to reflect on all of the report and all of its findings. I don't think any of us have anything to gain from dissecting or going over ground that we've went over before. However, I will absolutely take on board the learning from the report. We have already put some of those things already in train, and we'll do much more in the time ahead.
Mr. O'Toole.
First Minister, I'm afraid many of those loved ones who lost people in the pandemic will be frustrated in an answer which is very long on generic platitudes. We all can learn lessons, of course, but you were the Deputy First Minister then, you're the First Minister now. You are personally responsible, not simply in a generic way. So, in terms of one of the lessons, it is clear that one of the lessons is the toxicity and dysfunctionality of our political institutions. Do you agree with that? And will you commit to endorsing a programme of reform of Stormont before the end of this mandate? Please, First Minister, don't refer it simply to the AERC, which I sit on. We all agree it's a committee. Do you endorse a programme of reform as a specific lesson arising out of that public inquiry?
You don't seem to be able to hear me whenever I tell you each time you ask me the same question that I am up for the issue of reform being dealt with, and I think the place to have that conversation is in the AIRC committee, of which you are a member. I absolutely embrace the issue of reform, and I tell you that time after time. Maybe you don't want to hear it, but it actually is a fact. In terms of the inquiry, I do think it's important that the public understand that we are taking on board lessons learned. We were faced with an unprecedented global pandemic. All four parties of the executive, I believe, worked really hard to get people through that. Was it perfect? Far from it. Did we get everything right? Absolutely not. But that's where the lesson need to come from. And I want to say to the House that in terms of progress that we have been able to make, we have established a cross-departmental steering group established by our own office to consider all the recommendations, not just from this module, but from all modules of the public inquiry. We are absolutely committed to building a more resilient civil contingency system that we're able to respond to all emergencies. Significant progress has been made in terms of improving preparedness, response and recovery. That includes the appointment of a Chief Scientific and Technology Advisor, because I've certainly felt the whole way through the pandemic that was something that we as an executive were missing. We now have that in place. We've expanded our Civil Contingencies Division within the Executive Office itself. We've established cross-government civil contingency structures. We've developed and enhanced the Civil Contingency Risk Register. We're going to do a further review of 2026 of all of that framework. We're already taking part in exercise named Pegasus, which is about future planning for any potential catastrophe, pandemic exercise. So we are putting lessons into train, we're actually putting them into action, and I want the public to hear that that's the lessons learned already being embraced. We're not waiting to the end of all of the public inquiry, we're actually doing things as we go, and have done actually as we went the whole way through the pandemic and in the years since.
Maurice Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the First Minister for her answers so far. First Minister, in light of the recent findings of the COVID-19 inquiry, will the Minister now take this opportunity to apologise to the House for having undermined public health messaging at that particular time?
Minister.
And of course the member will be aware that I have already been in this House on numerous occasions and actually addressed this question in numerous including in terms of the public inquiry itself. My actions would never have been to set out to deliberately or to really further hurt families who'd lost loved ones throughout the pandemic, and I've made that clear directly to the families also.
Mr. Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the First Minister for her answer. But does the First Minister believe that a minister who undermines public health messaging in the middle of a pandemic meets the standards of accountability and leadership and the public is entitled to expect? If so, how?
Not quite sure if I understand the question, but I can say to the member I've made my views known in terms of any damage that I caused to public health messaging. I've taken every opportunity to do so. I continue to lead us and did lead us the whole way through that pandemic, and if faced with it again tomorrow I would do likewise, but I would have the added advantage on this occasion of all the lessons that have been learned, some of which I've already reflected.
Pat Shane.
Many teachers have contacted me with serious concerns about the Education Minister's proposals to criminalise teachers who refuse to cooperate with inspections in what is a routine part of trade union industrial action. Does the First Minister share my concerns?
Yes, I do, and I have too been contacted by those same teachers, and I absolutely will work with you and with other members of this House who are opposed to criminalising our teachers. These are just for taking industrial action. We need to strengthen workers' rights, not actually take away from them. So I want to give an unwavering commitment to every teacher out there that I will not endorse or stand over proposals that actually criminalise them for taking industrial action to seek better conditions for themselves and their colleagues.
Mr. Shane.
Does the First Minister believe that rather than undermining workers' rights, we should be working to support workers and to avoid circumstances where teachers and others feel the need to engage in industrial action?
First Minister.
Yes, I do, and I think instead of criminalising workers, we should, or workers and teachers in the previous question, we need to do all that we can to support them to do the incredible job that they do, and that's why I very much welcome the protection for workers' rights that the Economy Minister will bring forward shortly, the legislation that we'll all have a chance to debate and discuss and hopefully agree. But that legislation is the most progressive piece of workers' rights legislation that we've ever seen. It's an opportunity for us actually to put money into the pockets of workers in terms of giving them protection in law for their conditions that they work under. So this is about very much supporting workers' families and to protect the rights of trade unions as well, to support those workers. So I think that's an incredible opportunity. It's something that we can do in a real practical sense to make a difference to all those out there, and I encourage all parties in the Assembly to engage in that legislation and to be part of shaping what can be the most progressive piece of legislation. We can see an end to exploitative zero-hour contracts, we can see stronger rights for trade unions, we can see paid leave for neonatal care, among other progressive measures. So I think this is something that we should all work together on. It'll really make a difference to people's lives.
Good, Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the First Minister, in some of the discussions about the upcoming UK budget, there's been a discussion around an artificial intelligence regulatory goods and regulatory advisor role for Northern Ireland. Have you had any briefings on this? Can you provide any clarity about this proposed role?
Sorry, no, I can't actually, but I'm happy to go off and talk to officials in case there's been official level engagement. But no, it's not been brought to our attention. But I think, given the enhanced role of AI in everything we do in life, we need to have the right protections. There needs to be the right regulatory framework around that. So we would obviously have something to say about that. So I think as we see what comes later in the week in terms of the budget, which I hope was going to be more support for workers and families, what I hope was going to be more support in terms of childcare. What I hope we're going to see is more in terms of the inheritance tax being dealt with. So I think that as we await the outcome of Wednesday, we've made our views known in terms of the budget itself, but in terms of the regulatory framework, we don't have that detail yet.
Ms. Nicholl.
Thank the First Minister. Just on the theme of budget and AI, then there's really great work that's happening with being led by Helen McCarthy. There's a view that Northern Ireland could be world leading in terms of ethical use of AI, but there needs to be a strategy brought forward with speed. Have you given any further consideration to increasing the allocation in the budget to this department, given the importance to our economy?
Okay, so we have to wait till we have our 3-year budget set later this year, and then we'll know what we're playing with in terms of our own departmental budget. But yes, we've identified the need for the AI strategy that's being actively developed, and I concur with you in terms of the role of our new Chief Scientific Advisor, Helen McCarthy, and the work that she's doing. And a wide range of a team of people are actually helping her to develop that strategy, and we hope to be able to bring it to the Assembly very shortly in the near future. But in order to have a strategy, you have to be able to resource it to back it up, to make it practical. So that's definitely a conversation we'll be having as part of the budget discussions.
Ferguson.
Thank you. First Minister, last week 14 MEPs wrote to the President of the European Parliament calling for observer status for political representatives here in the North. Will the Minister join me in supporting these calls?
Yes, I do, and I think that whilst there probably isn't again an agreed position in this office on this, but from my perspective I absolutely agree with the initiative that was taken. I think that there's no escape in the reality that Brexit's been disastrous for us, and all we've faced from that time has been uncertainty and economic challenge and mitigation and further mitigation, and even today we're talking about more mitigation in terms of financial support for businesses. So this has been a hugely uncertain and challenging time. Many of us have worked to mitigate the worst excesses of Brexit, and without those efforts and mitigations we would obviously be much worse off. So I think our unique position with having access to both markets really does command that we actually have direct access at an EU level. So I do really support that initiative, and I hope that we can continue to make the case that we have our voice heard in the European Parliament.
Ferguson.
Thank you, First Minister. First Minister, the letter also noted that in the event of Irish unity, the North would automatically rejoin the EU. Does the First Minister believe granting observer status would help us better plan and prepare for the future? Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose, like as I do every day, everything I do is about trying to work to make people's lives better, and I also believe that there is a much brighter and better future ahead for all of us if we only can grasp that opportunity together. I think we've got so much untapped potential right across this island that can best be unlocked through constitutional change, and of course I see no contradiction in us delivering good public services, working together in this institution every day, whilst also having equally legitimate political aspirations for where we see ourselves in the future. So I really want us to embrace that, but I also think that we need to carefully plan for change. I think that's important, that people have the facts, that they have the information, that everybody knows that every vote will have an equal value, and I certainly think that the discussions and the preparations need to be had now in terms of constitutional change, and I think those discussions need to be had with an Irish government, with a British government, at an EU level. I think that is going to be important. So I do think that the observer status for Northern representatives would certainly assist in all of that. I think it would assist in terms of the planning and the preparation, and as I said, having our voices heard in Europe. Also, we know that rejoining the EU through constitutional change would open up many more doors for all of our people and could attract more investment, create more jobs, boost tourism and truly seize on our potential. So I think what we need to do is keep our eyes focused on an outward looking future, an inclusive future, a better future, and I think our voice being heard at the European level would be really crucial to shape that narrative as well.
Brian Kingston.
Thank you. And First Minister, it is astonishing that the Public Prosecution Service have said that there was insufficient evidence to prosecute the Sinn Féin employee who resigned from his employment with this Assembly after the damage caused to the portrait of former Lord Mayor Lord Brown at Belfast City Hall last November. In the interest of good relations, did the First Minister urge Sinn Féin MLAs, having knowledge of that event, to cooperate with the police investigation?
The matter that he refers to is a matter for the PPS to decide. I discharge my duties as responsibly as I always should, and if this was an issue for the PPS, they've made their final view known. You mightn't like the outcome, but the outcome is the outcome.
Mr Kingston.
Well, First Minister, I think there is a good relations angle to this in consequence of it. And indeed, the Junior Minister was present at the event. And given that the Sinn Féin Chief Whip is quoted in a witness statement as saying that the employee made no admission of being at the event, given that there were a large number of Sinn Féin members in attendance, as I say, including the Junior Minister, surely it is not credible for Sinn Féin to claim once again that they did not notice their former employee present there.
Mr Speaker, I'm sure we're not going to start dissecting the PPS outworkings of all cases and all decisions taken. They have made their view known. I have nothing further to add to it.